North Melbourne. That will be a big test.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So their form's obviously really strong. They got beaten by Melbourne last week. It was a really close game. We played them in the pre-season, and it was a good match. It was one that we had to shift at late notice, but they got a really strong midfield, good forwards, and they're really well structured. So their back line holds up really well as well. So we envisage it's going to be a really tight tussle.
Jazz Garner, she's got the perfect 20 in the coaches' votes 2 rounds in.
Yes. I better not give her a vote. So. No, well, she's been a really strong player in the competition for probably 3 or 4 years, and it's the capacity to be a midfielder and also be a forward and to impact in both those zones. So, so what we do is we make sure that we've got some accountability to her and to have basically a plan for the midfield and a plan for the forward.
You mentioned the forwards a couple of times. They've got some really tall girls down there. Is it winning your battles in the defensive 50, or is it stopping the...
Yeah, so last week we had a real imbalance in our inside 50 count. So, we need to take a little bit of the pressure off of our defenders by not letting it in there quite as much. But then it just comes down to, we've got strong defenders, and, while they have got real height, they've also got some ground level as well, so it's not just going to be in the air, it's going to be all over. But as always, if we can restrict the number of times it's going in there, then clearly that's going to help.
One of the pleasing things, you mentioned the imbalance in the inside 50 count. You were very efficient when you went in there, maybe something you weren't happy with in round 1. How big a positive was that?
It was actually really, it was a funny game. I loved that game that we played last week in terms of both those things, our ability to withstand serious pressure for an extended period and not concede a lot of score. And then on the flip side, when we got our chances, we were a lot more efficient, took the ball forward and gave our forwards a chance by delivering it with a bit more precision.
How far are you off your best, Doc? I mean, obviously we saw what you did last year, but...
Obviously we want to play better. I think often, we look back nostalgically and think that everything was golden. We had a really tough season last year. None of those games that we were able to win came easily. They were all really tight battles, and that's been the same so far. So in some ways, I'm pretty happy with where we're at. We just haven't quite got the results that we would have liked. We're probably a little bit off in some of our contest method in round 1, but I thought we addressed that to a large degree last week. And really the imbalance in inside 50 was to Richmond's credit in a lot of respects. They were just playing really good footy. They have got a really strong midfield. I think by the end of the season, we'll see that they'll have won a lot of games, and that their midfield will be considered probably one of the better ones in the comp. So they got it in, and then when we tried to take it out, they were just really clean and efficient. So I'm actually really comfortable with where we're at. I certainly don't think that we're where we need to be, but that is the same every year. You've got to build each season, and you've got to try and rediscover that really good form as you build through the year. It's no different any other year.
When you haven't been at your best, how pleasing is it that you've stayed in the contest and you could have potentially won both games, although... I think we were probably we would have been very lucky to pinch the first one. We did have a shot to go ahead, and equally we were behind for most of the last week, but I felt confident we could get there. So as I say, people are suggesting we're not at our best. I think we're playing pretty good footy. I think the competition's got better again, and that was to be expected. But we're trying to continue to improve and get better each week.
What about Abby Ballard? She's got a great kick on her, doesn't she?
Yeah. Well, it's been a bit of an anomaly that it's taken her this long to kick her first goal, but it was good that she got a second one straight away. Because she's a great kicker of the footy, and she's given herself opportunities she hasn't played a heap of games, obviously, but in most of the games she's played, she's given herself opportunities and actually just missed them, or just hasn't, it just hasn't quite clicked. So, but she stepped up in a really important moment and, kicked 2 great goals from sort of, that 40, 45 metre range, which is pretty solid in AFLW.
And then Rising Star as well. How did the team?
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, that's great to get that acknowledgement. Clearly, she's a popular personality within the team, and they were excited for her.
Can I ask about the ruck battle tomorrow as well?
Yes.
Any plans to bring back Montana?
Yeah, so we'll do the selection tonight, so that'll be a good one to check in on. But it's a good challenge. So obviously they've got Rennie and King. Rennie has done last week in particular. Rennie did the bulk of it, so they used King as a key forward option, and I think that's probably their preferred model. But yeah, she's a handy backup to go to in terms of an All-Australian ruck who predominantly plays forward for them. So yeah, that's going to be a good challenge, and yeah, we'll look at the conditions a little bit too. It's looking like it might be fairly inclement. So whether the balance of talls and smalls will be something we'll consider.
Do you think there will be changes at selection, or?
Yeah, well, there'll be a couple of changes. Yep, there'll be a couple of changes. So part of that is that we've got good depth in our squad, and therefore where opportunity presents, we need to provide it for them as well. So there'll be a couple of changes, but it's not dramatic, subtle tweaks.
Unfortunately, there's been plenty of injuries. We saw a bad one in the Port Adelaide game last week.
Yeah.
We spoke about it a little bit this week. Where's your stance on the Medi-Sub? Do you think it's about time we brought a Medi-Sub into AFLW?
I don't think so, no. We've got 5 on the bench, so that's a lot, really. You can manage that pretty well if you get 1 injury, probably even 2. So I don't think there's a need for that. We've also got unlimited interchange, and the quarters are shorter. So I think the argument for a Medi-Sub is pretty weak.
It was interesting though that the game ended up being delayed so much because there was only 1 ambulance at the ground, so when it left they had to wait for another one to come back. That's just what happens at suburban grounds though, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that's happening all over the state in 100 football games every weekend. So yeah, it's an interesting situation. Obviously, from a league's perspective, we want to provide an environment that's absolutely best practice for our players, and therefore, if that's best practice, that's what we'll do. So if it means waiting till the ambulance arrives, so be it.
Indigenous jersey be worn this week. Extra spring in the step. And what did you think of Danielle's comments about helping out any Port Adelaide player that needed a hand this week?
I didn't see the comment. I'll have to chase her up. But what I would say is that Danielle has been unbelievably great representative for our team, and a great educator for our team in terms of our cultural awareness. And I love our Indigenous jumper. I think it's outstanding. Obviously, it crosses over both our men's and women's teams, but I think the women's team's one in yellow is better. But they're both outstanding, and it's just a really nice piece. We had Patrick and Rennie who created the gifts that are going to get exchanged prior to the game, and our gifts are elite, so we expect a fair bit from North Melbourne, otherwise we're not handing over. They're really beautiful pieces of artwork, and it's just a great opportunity for us to celebrate Indigenous culture and what it means to football, because footy's a better game for that contribution.